Hello and welcome all. This is Sachin Gaur from the India EU IC Standards Project. And today we have a very interesting topic at hand, which is IoT security. And we are having this 18th webinar as a knowledge series in our project. And I have honor of having two very knowledgeable persons with me today, Mr. Shailendra Kumar Sharma, who is DDG Smart Networks with TEC, and Mr. Vijay Madan, who is advisor to TSDSI. And as all of you know, Mr. Vijay Madan is a very, what do you say, esteemed expert in the security topic. And Mr. Madan has been part of various committees. And today in India, IoT security is a topic which is very hot topic. And we look forward today to have this discussion. And just to give you a bit of background, I would like to introduce today's speaker, Mr. Shailendra Kumar Sharma. He has done his BE honors electronics and electrical engineering from along with MSc physics from BITS Pilani in the year 1983, followed by MBA in financial management in the year 2007 and PG diploma in international business operations from IGNOU in 2011. He has experience of summer school in Bhabha Atomic Research Center and Tata Institute of Fundamental Research as a National Science Talent Scholar. He is also a certificate of proficiency holder in French language and School of Foreign Languages, Ministry of Defense in the year 2014. He comes with a long and rich experience in telecom, covering operations, planning, development, and management of telecom services, coupled with designing and sales distribution of telecom products, giving due weight age to the various policies of Government of India. I would not go into further depths of his introduction, but it would be, you know, let's say, difficult to put all his experience in words, but he has a long experience of 33 years in covering many states in India and also covering many topics. What I've learned from Mr. Madan that Mr. Shailendra Kumar was also part of the recent report issued by TEC on IoT security. And I think that report is a very welcome work by TEC, at least what I've heard from the industry. And Mr. Madan was also chair of and the editor of the report. So we are very lucky today that we have two people from this report. So I welcome you both, sir, and I invite you, Mr. Madan, to share your comments and open the topic before we give the floor to the speaker.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Vijay Madan from TSDSI. I am advisor, solution and services, and one topic, of course, out of solution and services of several topics is security. I have pleasure today to have Mr. Shailendra Kumar Sharma. I work closely with him, and it was discussed between European project, ourselves, and Mr. Sharma that he speaks on IoT security today. The topics which we discussed include importance of IoT, then security, importance, the affected stakeholders, issues to be addressed in security, challenges and perspective, threats, and security of embedded system, IoT security, in particular, authentication, authorization, etc., heterogeneity and resource constraints, privacy and its preservation, identity, anonymity, and liability. And the interesting part of Mr. Sharma's talk, I believe, is going to be build security in IoT features and countermeasures, IoT functional architecture for security and all that, including ETSI, GSMA, M2M. He's also going to talk about classification of use cases of IoT depending upon EPD and criticality, so that security can be assigned as embedded overlay or part of the IoT security, so that this can be classified into different categories that you need, how many features and parameters in security in critical devices, how much in less critical devices, and how to measure and what should the results, etc., and all that. How to classify those basically. So we are very proud to have Mr. Sharma with us. And as you all know, the topic is very hot, and especially in the case of smart cities and other aspects of IoT in different use cases and different verticals. It will be glad to hear from Mr. Sharma, and we'll take the questions as Mr. Sachin has just now mentioned. Over to Sachin and Mr. Sharma.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Madan. As Mr. Madan pointed that we will be taking questions. So some of you might be new to this process. So just want to make you aware of some housekeeping rules. So we normally, let our speaker do, half a minute, half an hour presentation, and you can type your questions, during that time. And we will be watching them. And as the presenter finishes the presentation, we will be taking the questions. So I welcome you to type your questions as they come to you using the questions panel. And without further ado, I welcome Mr. Shailendra to give the presentation. But before that, I think Mr. Madan, you want to say something?
Yeah, I'll also like Mr. Sharma to spend some time on new, not very new terminology, which is called trust, because security, privacy, everything is going to become part of a trusted mechanism in IoT and all that. So my request to Mr. Sharma would be to focus on that also. Thank you very much.
Okay. So just a bit of transition. I give the floor to Mr. Sharma.
Welcoming address and putting on the floor to me to carry forward the rest of the presentation. Welcome everybody once again. Good morning, bonjour, guten morgen, and namaskar to persons in Europe and elsewhere in the world. To begin with, so I'll start right from the beginning. So when did the IoT begin? So it started long back in somewhere in 2000, whereby Kevin Ashton had to say, if we had computers that knew everything there was to know about things using data they gathered without any help from us, we would be able to track and count everything and greatly reduce waste, loss, and cost. So this is how the beginning of IoT was made. We will spend a few slides on knowing the things about beginning of IoT. At that time, if we would know when things needed replacing, repairing, or recalling, and whether they were fresh or past their best, that is, we could also go for preventive maintenances. That was the concept at that time. But it was not actually a very practical way to implement because of, you say, technology was not that ripe. So after all, there are many questions. How would we connect everything on the planet? At that time, it was not possible. But yes, now it is. When we transit from IPv4 to IPv6, then what type of wireless communication could be built into devices? Presently, we are having low power devices to aid IoT, low power technologies like LoRa and Sigfox and other things, Bison Alliance. Then what changes would be needed to make to the existing internet infrastructure? Well, definitely with 2G and 3G, it was not possible. But with the advent of 5G, it would be possible to have IoT. And with IoT, it will be possible to have smart cities. Now, as I said earlier, today many of these obstacles have been solved. IPv6 and other mechanisms allow us to assign a communications address to billions of devices. It is expected that there will be billions of objects connecting to the network within the next several years. As per estimation, 25 to 30 million connected devices will be connected by 2020. So that is the explosion of IoT that we will expect in the near future to come. Now, this is just to make aware the persons who are new to IoT. How do you describe IoT? IoT describes a system where items in the physical world and sensors within or attached to these items are connected to the internet via wireless and wired internet connections. Now, IoT will connect both inanimate and living things. Today, the vision of IoT has expanded to connect everything from industrial to physical to even virtual objects. Therefore, the definition is now not IoT, it is Internet of Everything, like people, places, objects, things, both physical and virtual. Virtual meaning to say even applications will be playing a great role in Internet of Everything. Now, second is use sensors for data collection. The physical objects that are being connected will possess one or more sensors. In IoT, these sensors will connect to each other and to other systems that can understand and present information from the sensors data feeds. Third is change what type of items communicate over an IoT network. IoT-enabled objects shall share conditions that surround the pupil software systems, then going forward, everything will have a digital identity and connectivity. So now, how is IoT different from traditional computing? Earlier, the machine-to-machine communication and intelligence drawn from the devices in the network will allow businesses to automate certain basic tasks. Now, these attributes present opportunities to collect a wide range of data, but also provide challenges in terms of designing the appropriate data networking and security. So earlier there was verticalized, you can say, machine-to-machine communication. It was not being interworked with internet, but once M2M communication gets interworked with internet, the attack surface areas also increase. Now, the 3 C's of IoT are communication. IoT communicates information to people and systems, such as state and health of equipment. We will have GPS-enabled assets. Healthcare industry uses IoT. The transportation industry will be using IoT. Then the second is control and automation. In connected world, a person will have visibility into device's condition. For example, if the brakes pads on a truck are about to fail, it can prompt the company to take the vehicle out of service and automatically reschedule maintenance. Then, of course, the third C of IoT is cost saving. IoT can help a company save money by minimizing equipment failure and allowing the business to perform planned maintenance. So that was so if we go by the definition of IoT, IoT is nothing but a global infrastructure for the information society, enabling advanced services by interconnecting physical and virtual. That means we have got virtual things also to be connected, and based on existing and evolving interoperable information and communication technologies. The technology has to be interoperable such that if a device has to shift the platform from one service provider to another, it is easily able to shift from one service provider to another. Now, these are some basic definitions about internet. I will be skipping the slides as actually we have already short of time. There is a basic difference between machine-to-machine communication and IoT or Internet of Everything. M2M is without requiring human intervention, whereas IoT, the human interface is also there. Now, these are the definitions which have been proposed by ETSI regarding M2M communication. Now, we are set to have a nice explosion of IoT in the coming years. These are some figures which have been put forward by Gartner. Then, the importance of IoT is in the enablement of the smart cities. So, IoT is the key enabler to smart cities globally. Maybe smart water, smart lighting, waste management. Okay. So, and things like pollution control and awareness, and of course, ITS, intelligent transport systems. So, IoT is the enabler of smart cities, as we have just seen. Without IoT, it would not have been possible to have smart cities. The government of India has had a very ambitious program of 100 smart cities, which will be costing around $3 billion. And realizing the importance of smart cities, the IoT is going to play a major role in the development of smart cities. And in this, 5G is going to be the enabler for IoT, and IoT is going to be the enabler for smart cities. So this is the reason why 5G would be the enabler of IoT. It will be having low latency of 1 millisecond round the trip, then almost 1,000 times bandwidth per unit area, and it will be able to connect more number of devices. I think the screen is not coming. So now, what is the difference between the security in IoT or security, the traditional sense of security, which we work on internet? As we all know, the security already inbuilt in the OSI model, which is having the physical data link, network, transport, session and presentation and application layers. And this is how the layers function, and they have got their own inbuilt protocols in the various layers as shown over here. And then we have got the physical layer, the data link layer, where the frames are exchanged in the network, where the packets are exchanged via different protocols. I will not be wasting much time on this. I will be moving forward because of paucity of time. The beauty of IoT is that, or the internet is that nobody knows who is on the other end unless you are able to visually see him. If I am visible to you, the confidence level increases. If not, then of course you will be feeling a bit let down in that confidence level. Now, the IoT threats are more serious than the normal, you can say, threats. Because in IoT, you are not only communicating, but you are also manipulating information to controlling and actuating. You are able to actually do physical operations through IoT. So that will have grave consequences if the control falls into some malicious hands. So IoT requires greater security and privacy than the virtual internet or the wireless mobile. Now, as Mr. Madan, you must have, as per your, you can say, request, I am touching about something about trust. So for IoT security, because the IoT system is a complete system, it is, there are various stakeholders, there are users, there are endpoint devices, there are telecom service providers, there are application service providers, there are M2M service providers. So for IoT to be foolproof, each entity has to have trust in the other entity. So before we talk about security and IoT ecosystem comprising various stakeholders, let us briefly talk about trust. So I will just be skipping about these things, definition of trust, attributes of trust. very briefly so as to conserve time. So trust is an accumulated value from history and the expected value for the future. Trust is quantitatively and or qualitatively calculated and measured, which is used to evaluate values of physical components, value chains. So amongst multiple stakeholders and human behaviors, including decision making. So these are some more definitions of trust. Entity X is said to trust entity Y for a set of activities if and only if entity X relies upon entity Y behaving in a particular way with respect to the various activities. So these are the various attributes of trust. We can have trust in the social domain, we can have trust in the cyber domain, in the physical domain. Now, relationship between security, privacy, and trust. Systems needs a variety of methods to prevent behaviors with malicious intents. Security mainly concerns technological aspects such as confidentiality, availability, and integrity. It also includes attack detection and recovery resilience. Whereas privacy, users need to protect their personal information related to their behaviors and interactions. Privacy mainly concerns user aspect to support anonymity and restrictive handling of personal user data. And what is trust? Trust is a broader concept that can cover security and privacy. Just imagine, to me, security and privacy are almost the same. If a system or an ecosystem is having a very good security, it will be difficult for the private hackers to hack your personal data. Thereby, you are not, you can say, sharing your personal information. So that way, if the security is high, automatically the end result of privacy is achieved. Trust allows confidence that people, data, devices will function or behave in expected ways. Trust can be used to build new value chains in ICT feature. This I'll be skipping as I just explained. Relationship among security, privacy, and trust. This is diametrically being explained about the privacy and the security being the subset of trust. For trust, you need to have confidentiality, integrity, authentication, and non-repudiation of the origin of the data. Why it is required? Well, for claim settlement, definitely we require non-repudiation mechanisms. Similarly, to stop fake identity, you require authentication, and so on. So, as we have seen, the future of IoT cannot be realized without addressing security and privacy risks. But what is this security? Security of what? Security primarily of the data. So, even if you are giving some commands or fetching some data, they are all actually bits and bytes. It is nothing but data. So, security and privacy must become a part of everybody's product's feature set. This we have already covered. What are the various stakeholders in the IoT? Can IoT security deals with safeguarding connected devices, physical and virtual, in addition to the networks and IT security for the Internet of Things. So these are a few things. Now we will be talking about the security threats and understanding the potential threats in the IoT environment and challenges which are being faced by the IoT. In a completely closed network, like in verticalized capital use cases, security risks are minimal, as already I explained earlier. But as M2M embedded systems become IP enabled and interconnected, the attack surface becomes open to threats. Therefore, there is a need for trusted security credentials to secure connections between applicative entities. So this is how there are threat agents. These are the threats. There may be external threat agent or internal. The various threats are depicted like fabrication, denial of service, power drainage, buffer exhaustion, and the assets that are being compromised are shown. Sometimes maybe memory, sometimes stored data, maybe computation, sometimes power, sometimes password may be compromised. The devices and the control platform on which data may be consumed and shared could have different ownership, policy, managerial, and connectivity domains. Now, this is what makes IoT different. In a particular case, the device may be having multiple profiles, and it will be having multiple access to various application service providers and even to the various telecom service providers. So therefore, each set of data or the ownership of data has to be managed in a different way. So it is rightly said, devices will be required to have equal and open access to number of data consumers and controllers concurrently, while still retaining privacy and exclusivity of data where that is required between those consumers. So there are seemingly complex competing security requirements like authenticate to multiple networks securely, ensure that data is available to multiple collectors, manage the contention between the data access. So these are some common examples how the IoT security can be compromised. Now with this in background, what are the IoT challenges? So for the embedded systems, in addition to the unique risks of M2M systems, embedded systems in general contain inherent security risks. And inconsistent or intermittent network connectivity increases the chance of a device connecting to an unsecured network. So that has to be minimized. How? There are various algorithms to minimize that. Now, why there is so much of challenge for making security of the IoT devices? They are actually typically small, inaccessible devices with little or no physical security. Moreover, it has got a very small area, so the memory size is also less. Then it should not add to the latency in the processing. It has got limited security compute capabilities. Then encryption algorithms need higher processing power. So these are some competing complexities in the endpoint devices, which we have to think while making the security of the devices a practical solution. Now, these are some of the challenges that I have listed. I will be going fast because I think the time is running quite slow. Now, there are challenges with respect to authentication. As authentication is related with identification, M2M systems will probably need to incorporate some type of secure identifier, tying information, identifying the device or application as secret material. So there are various standards in that which are giving the security now this is something to say about privacy. As M2M systems require that privacy is balanced against disclosure of information, new authentication mechanisms relying on appropriate secure identifiers and incorporating privacy preserving mechanisms are required. So this is something to say about trust. Then I've already spoken about authentication and authorization of IoT devices. The way to store and present identity information may be substantially different for the IoT devices. Note that in a physical enterprise networks, the endpoints are identified by human credentials. With authentication authorization components, a trust relationship is established between IoT device to exchange appropriate information. Now, these are the challenges with respect to heterogeneity and resource complaints. As already spoken, given the limitations on the computational capabilities of many sensing and actuating platforms, security technologies must be developed to cope with appropriate and support by architectures with a similar to ETSI M2M architecture. So this I will be skipping because privacy part will take this into a much longer duration. But however, I would like to mention that in India also, privacy is one of the key importance of nowadays. The right to privacy in India has developed through a series of decisions over the past 60 years. In a unanimous judgment of Supreme Court in August 2017, Supreme Court has ruled that the right to privacy is protected as an intrinsic part of the right to life and personal liberty under Article 21. So this is as far as the Indian perspective is concerned. This was basically having some repercussions with the Aadhaar Act also. Now, to be going fast, I will be just showing the slides how you mitigate the risk and what are the factors for mitigating risk in IoT domain. So the 4 factors are: address security early and take defensive measures against security threats using threat modeling, then reduce security risk, then build security in at development stage, maybe by security by design, then protect systems through secure analytics. The next few slides I will be just skipping. These are in detail, and I think security by design. The secure design of M2M embedded systems relies heavily on a number of crucial elements being applied at the development stage. Then we have to enforce boundaries, isolate code to enforce strict boundaries between the operating systems and the processes. Then protect data, encrypt data in transit, protect data at the rest using underlying file system encryption. Then enforce least privilege, ensure that every program and every user of the system operates using the least set of privileges necessary. Now, these are the common things. I'll go to the main thing. These are some of the architectures which have been discussed. This is the ETSI architecture, this is GSM architecture, this is a global platform. Now, the issues that we need to be addressed in IoT is incorporation of minimal security standards for M2M products, then define guidelines from security angle with respect to data ownership, then security of sensitive data like personal information, then location of application services, location of remote terminals, then enable interconnection of legacy non-IP devices on existing network technologies, then security framework, KYC norms, concept of machine KYC, then M2M product certification. This would be done as per the ETSI M2M scheme, which has been launched recently in July 2019. So, coming to endpoint devices, as Mr. Madhan rightly pointed out, we require certain different assurance levels as per the security requirement of the use cases. So, do all endpoint devices need to conform to same level of security? One must arrive at a logical and practical solution, as EPT security will entail cost and consume other scarce resources like memory power. Hence, the various assurance classification levels have been proposed. Now, the endpoint devices form the most essential part of the mechanism to machine network, as it is here that data creation and information generation actuation happens. It is imperative that the protocol stack of M2M device has robust and well-protected management control frames to prevent access to the information stored in the devices, which can be used by an attacker. Now, each entity in the M2M service shall obtain or should be responsible for the KYC of its customers. Just as the owner of the same is responsible for informing the TSPs for effecting the change of ownership, similarly, the first or the existing owner of the device should be responsible for transfer of ownership. So again, coming to the endpoint devices, we propose to have various levels of assurance of the endpoint devices, starting from level 0 to level 1. Now, level 0 basically is the least security secure device, whereby the security is almost of 0 level. Then level device is where you can just recognize that the device is present in the network. So that is does not have inbuilt security features, but devices can be identified with this level of assurance. Then you have got the level 2 assurance, which is device verification, where the security identification and verification both are included. Then we have got the average sort of security requirement, where you will have level 3 type of devices. This will be secure device verification using username and password. Then we have level 4 device identification and authentication. And lastly, we have the most stringent device verification or the endpoint verification, that is level 5, which will be done by personal biometrics. And it can be for, say, health devices, which are very critical in nature. Now, this is the graphical presentation of the various assurance levels, whereby, as I already told, L0 from no security to the highest level of assurance required, that is device identification authentication plus user verification, that is biometrics at level 5. I will just give this a technical one, how the exchange mechanisms takes place between the endpoint devices. Now, to have the entire trust in the IoT ecosystem, we need not only have the IoT security, but also we should have a security framework encompassing all, that is the telecom service providers, the M2M service providers, the application service providers, the device manufacturers, the end users. So everybody should be amalgamated in a system whereby the trust is evolved. Now, how do we do that? So here it is, registration of M2M service provided by a government authority recommended by DOT. Then we have got registration of M2M application service providers by registrars within the industry verticals like ARI, MIT, ISGF, but preferably in a single national register, the National Trust Center. Connected devices, gateway manufacturers certification through ETSI M2M scheme, which has been launched in July 2019. Then a national register for all M2M machines embedded tamper-resistant identity that can enable a machine KYC. I will be touching upon the concept of machine KYC very shortly. Then specification, certification, compliance for IoT and M2M devices by use case categories. This is not moving forward. Yeah. Now, as I told you, the concept of machine KYC, the present licensing and regulatory regime is totally focused on provisioning the voice and data service for the users of humans. Accordingly, it covers issues such as customer acquisition, their KYC, customer data, etc. But this is not sufficient for M2M devices. For them, we should have similarly be prudent to ensure KYC of the OEMs of the machines, devices, and that of the ultimate owners of that machine, devices. It is not sufficient to know the identity of the owner of the connectivity element, but equally important to know the machine in which the connectivity element is fitted in. The National Trust Center will identify machines based on tamper-resistant connectivity elements, which will add to the security, safety, and traceability of the IoT use cases. Purchase and sale of movable assets and decisions are individual-centric, and it shall be extremely difficult and economically unviable for the MSC TSP to keep track. Therefore, a simpler solution shall have to be evolved for implementing KYC norms for M2M devices. Now, here are a few suggestions. The KYC norms for each of the individual M2M service verticals should be a part of the TC standards. Say, for example, for automobiles, the engine can be captured as part of the registration process, similar to the engine and chassis number. The activation or deactivation of the SIM should be permitted only once the copy of the RC is submitted by the TSP by the original or subsequent purchaser. So this is having a revolving around trust in the ecosystem of IoT. Now, a suggestion is for devices which are owned by individual, health products, the ownership of the MDM can be with the customer itself. He can be responsible for change of the ownership. Then M2M KYC has to be implemented as a security by design. Machine KYC implies that the device is an authenticated device. Now, as Mr. Madan was rightly telling, we have to touch upon the use cases, and depending upon the use cases, we will have to, you can say, classify your devices. The use cases can be mission critical, high quality of service, sensitive information, that is highly private information. Then it can be mission critical, high quality service, non-sensitive information. These are the various use cases that can be classified. And then depending upon the classification, we can agree to have the assurance levels of the endpoint devices. And then depending, when these two are fixed, we can have the security requirements. This is the trust model that has been touched upon. The recommendations being all IoT M2M service providers and IoT M2M application service providers shall be registered with the Department of Telecommunications as per the M2M service provider guidelines. Then M2M service providers or M2M application service providers be given a unique identity, company name, registration ID, application name, application ID, application classification, start date. Along with that, the company has to declare its PPS policy, that is practice policy statement, whereby it will be just whatever the company is saying, that only the application is doing, nothing more and nothing less. Now, these are some of the suggestions for the security functions. Security common service functions hosted by the M2M service provider shall ensure implementation of the security functions described below. Now, what are these functions? Record the embedded machine identity or machine KYC, identify the machine capability, configurations, and purpose of use cases, record the identity of the application server and the machine parented to, then record the identity of the service provider of the M2M, then identify the owner of the machine with the possibility of identifying changes of the owner, then ensure location discovery, locking of the connectivity element to the remote dispense mobile objects, ensure lawful interception and blocking and shutdown in case of malafide devices. So this is what we propose in the trust model, and this is what is the framework for the National Trust Center. These are basically the same as given in the previous slide, bearing a few changes. Registration of M2M application using Class 2, Class 3 certificate taken from the commercial CA in India. M2M ASP abstractions coupled through standards-based M2M architecture. So, in fact, if you look at this, these are almost the same which we have delved upon in the model trust. So, these are the functions which can be done by the National Trust Center. These are the device security requirements, the mandatory parameters and specifications requirement regarding identity, certification, SIM locking to EMEI, application authorizations, device data, remote management, and with respect to applications, of course, the application service provider ID, the application ID, the server ID, and the practice statement that I have just spoken about, that needs to be given by the application service provider. Now, once if we, these are the use cases and the security requirements of the various use cases, as I had just seen a few slides before. So once if we implement this, I think we are sure to increase the trust level in the society, and the IoT ecosystem is bound to prosper once the public which are using it, they are confident about the safety and security and the privacy aspects of their own self, of their devices, and the interconnected things. I think with this, I will put a halt over here, and I will make over to Mr. Madan. And if the questions are in between, I will be ready to take the questions also. Sorry, I have to skip a few slides because of paucity of time.
So, sir, I think a marathon presentation.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
It's not possible to cover this topic maybe in a 30-40 minute presentation. This topic requires probably a day long or 2 day long dialogue, and I believe for you guys to prepare this TEC report probably has taken more than a year.
More than a year, yeah.
Yeah. So I think now I would encourage the participants to type down their questions, and we would be looking at your questions and reading out them and try to answer them as best as possible. And
in the meantime, I think I will carry on with my presentation till the questions.
No, sir, there are many questions, so I would say that we should give adequate.
Okay, there are many questions.
Yeah. So, sir, I would read out the first one for you, and it's for both of you, Mr. Madan and Mr. Sharma. Is there any mandatory cybersecurity certification program mandated by Government of India similar to CTIA program? This is from Mr. Vinayak Shastri.
Is there any
mandatory cybersecurity certification program mandated by Government of India similar to CTIA program? So So I think Mr. Madan is suggesting that there is currently none and there is something in pipeline. Could be in pipeline. Then Mr. Amit Gupta is asking, can you please elaborate about TEC's MTCT scheme? Would you want to say something?
Yeah, definitely. I think this has taken almost a year-long process to finalize the various essential requirements of the devices or the gateways or the various products, telecom products basically. And these, before inducting them into the network, in the Indian network, telecom network, they have to be certified through TEC or TEC accredited labs. There are around 50 labs accredited all over the country. And the ER requirements are also available on the TEC website. That I will also be sharing the details at the end of the presentation, giving you the various details of the website. And one can definitely register. The MTCT portal has also been launched in July 2019, very recently, and the ERs are available over there for your products to be certified against the MTCT scheme.
Yeah, so I go to the next question, and the next question is from Mr. Devarajan R. I believe is from HPE. He's saying security requires strong policies, clear ownership, segregation, and authorities. In today's smart city scenario, these are lacking. Without achieving IoT security is like a mirage. Without which achieving IoT security is a mirage. What is the policy direction by government towards these? Any comments?
Well, I agree with you that for making smart cities, the enabler is IoT, and for IoT, the enabler is 5G. And without the security policies, it would be difficult to generate that sort of confidence level amongst the masses to go in for IoT at a mass scale. And we are in the pipeline of building the security requirements framework. And this was the topic of today's presentation also, though it is IoT security. But I have briefly touched upon the framework for IoT security that needs to be established to have, you can say, a confidence level amongst the public to go in for IoT in a mass way in the smart cities.
Right. So we have next question from Mr. Atul Bali. He says, shall national register be done with government agencies only for security reasons?
It is at this point of time, it would be very difficult for me to answer this question. Whether only the government agencies would be mandated for this sort of work. But security primarily being the responsibility of the, or rather safeguarding the interest of the country, this logically should go to a government agency.
Okay. So Mr. Madan is suggesting third party accredited by government, right?
Including that.
Including that. That can be one of the ways to move forward.
Yeah. So, meanwhile, I have moved Mr. Sharma's presentation to his contact details because I'm sure that a lot of you might have many more questions, which some might even want to, direct to you. But I keep proceeding with my questions, sir. And,
sure.
And I also believe, with your permission, maybe we can share your slides with the audience because it might have been very difficult for everybody to.
Perfectly okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I go to the next question. This is from Padma, and she's asking what kind of device certification is planned for IoT devices.
We have got certain ERs already made for IoT devices, which are available on the TEC website, and I will be giving you or sharing you the details of that also. Can you go to the end of the presentation?
Yeah, I'm there.
Just okay. So this is the one. You can see for the various ER requirements. maybe IoT or even other products, one can visit this site www.mtct.tec.gov.in, and quite a number of ERs for the IoT devices have been made, and they are available on the website.
Okay. So then I think somebody is suggesting, is blockchain helpful for providing any security solution in IoT? Any point of views on that?
Yeah, blockchain normally was designed to have a financial transaction, thereby you can have the previous logs already stored into your network, and it does give a bit of authentication feel when you use blockchain. But it has still to be seen. There is, I think, no debarment of using blockchain technology for IoT security, but it has to be devised. What I'm talking about is more generic about the trust in the entire IoT ecosystem, whereby the various stakeholders, they trust each other. Blockchain basically is a sequential transactions that take place. What we are interested is even the users, the app service providers, the M2M service providers, the end users' devices, and these are amalgamated to a single registrar, whereby the information, even if you sell up, say, if you want to sell your AC, which is remotely controlled, then all those transactions are logged into that registrar. Presently, this is being done only for the vehicles, that is through RTO, because these devices can play havoc in future if they fall into malicious hands.
Right. So some of the participants are asking me that will we share the presentation, and I already got the permission from Mr. Sharma.
Definitely.
That we will share the presentation, so no worries on that part, because your presentation definitely covers more ground that we are able to cover today in the webinar because of the.
I agree, because of time constraints.
Yes. So then there is a question from Mr. Manoj Belgaonkar from Siemens, I believe. He's asking, IEC 62443 will be relevant for this? Any positions on this, sir?
Relevant on what? I think if they not for IT security. Basically, I think he's asking with respect to the essential requirements. So we do have incorporated the clauses in the various EMI, EMC, and the safety parameters of the various devices. And specifically to answer this question, I need to have a ready reckoner what this standard refers to. But if it is a standard, then you can always visit the TEC website and go into the ER requirements that has been published. It's statistical data, and yes, if it is applicable, it will be. You will definitely find it over there in the essential requirements.
Then there is one from Arpit. He's asking, on blockchain, just like TRI has established a system of registration of various entities, can something similar to this be done for IoT service providers and other entities for registration?
Yeah, as I earlier told, because I think this is again asking the same question. There is no debar in using blockchain for the registration of the various service providers and application service providers and other stakeholders.
Okay, I think that's probably the last question we had, and maybe I request Mr. Madan, sir, if you have any difficult questions for our speaker today.
Difficult questions.
As you are the chair of one of the.
My question to Mr. Sharma would be that we had talked about device registration and other registrations and all that. What about application registration itself? Do you have any idea on that?
Yeah, very good question, Mr. Madan. Regarding application registration, some of the participants would have been common. There was a app ID registry webinar aired on, I think, 3rd of July by Mr. Sharad Arora. And the details of app registration, how they to be carried forward, was explicitly and quite extensively covered in that webinar. And if people are interested, they can again visit the TEC website, and the details of that webinar, the entire recording is available. And for further queries, I think, pardon?
Can you send a mail and get the answer?
Yes, definitely. I'll be too glad to answer the queries.
Yeah. So I think that was Mr. Madan's question to you. Now I have one for both of you. And since you have done this report, spent a lot of time with, let's say, a voluntary task force, preparing this excellent report, is there any future work that you foresee for this report? Any specific areas in your mind, or you would like to call using this webinar experts, for your next edition? Any point of views on that?
Yeah, the way forward has already been there in the report regarding establishment of NTC or the concept of machine KYC, then the classification of EPD devices, then of course the essential requirements of the devices. But I would definitely encourage and ask the experts to join in our pitching with their views and comments regarding formation of the National Trust Center. And that would be a welcome idea, so that we also move in sync with the industry and in times with the industry. We are all there to help out the society grow in a safe and secure manner, the entire IoT ecosystem in a safe and secure manner.
I also think, Mr. Sachin, your answer to your question is, once people go through that report completely, at the end it provides certain recommendations and way forward. I think it will be a good idea in two ways. If people have answers to those questions themselves, they can participate. And if they can add value to those way forward questions, that yes, they believe that beyond this also, particular things should also be considered and all that. That may be a good idea. But I recommend that people should go through this report, and such in to the TC link, this report is available, and it can make much sense.
Right.
I'll just read the TC link. It is actually, the reports are available under www.tc.gov.in, and there are two reports, recommendations on IoT security, where, as Mr. Madan was telling, we have also suggested the way forward, and we would welcome any more feedback and participation on that. And the other report is on smart cities, sustainable smart cities, whereby certain standards have been also elaborated.
So I think with that, I thank you both for your contribution today, and I think especially to the participants, I would also like to encourage them to link with TEC for future work, like Mr. Madan said. And sir, with your permission again, we can also volunteer if you want any survey to be conducted, because today we have quite a bit of participation.
Okay.
If you think from your office,
more than 100 registrations were there.
Yeah. So if your office would want any written feedback from the participants, we could circulate a survey, and maybe
definitely that would be helpful in improving the entire system, both the stakeholders as well as TEC, and enriching us in moving forward.
Yeah. Because I can see there are quite a bit of industry experts available here, and it will be have their feedback on the report. And we thank you again for your participation today. I think
thank you very much. And
yeah.
I also thank the participants who have made the entire presentation a very lively one through their interactions. And of course, Mr. Madan for his introduction, very good introduction.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I also thank everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.